Hello and welcome to 4,000 and Counting. I'm Watty. This is Mark, and tonight we are joined by Leeds Knights champion, Mr. James Archer, one of my favourite competitors I ever played against throughout my whole career. Absolute warrior, start to finish. We're going to get into it a little later on, but Arch has announced his retirement. So, what better time to get him on after trophy and a retirement? Arch, welcome to 4,000 and Counting, mate.
Welcome. Cheers, bud. Good to be here.
Mate, let's talk us through it because obviously you win your first title with Manchester in the EPL, actually still bit parts of Coventry Elite League prior to that. Then you win the NIHL one title the year that there was no EPL anymore. And now you've gone full circle, won a couple more league titles in the national. You've done it all, mate. Congrats.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, it's been a decent career, I guess. I've been fortunate enough to lift a few league trophies, playoff trophies, and whatnot through my time.
How do the Sellies different now as a dad and in this new generation versus maybe as a young man in Manchester winning a league title? The celebration's a little bit different.
Yeah, but the hangovers are still the same. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, obviously the boys went out after the game, but we crushed quite a few beers on the ice and in the bar at the rink. So I'd had my full. But to be fair, before going back to Sheffield after the celebrations, but the boys went out, and obviously seeing some of the text messages going in at the times they went in, I couldn't stay out till those times anymore.
No, a bit past your bedtime nowadays.
Quite a bit.
Mark, well, we know, like me and Mark were hanging out in Vienna this year. So we were on a few beers and some activities, but still, it's nice to get to bed at like 11 midnight. It's quite nice now
Is
getting
when you
into your
get
30s and
older.
that.
Yeah, you don't want to do it, do you? Like, I mean, the days are gonna be out until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'd rather much go out at 12, 1 o'clock, be home for 10, a bit of TV, chill down, and asleep by 11.
Yeah, it
Exactly
sounds
that.
like the dream.
Yeah.
Sounding old, boys. And I mean, for those that don't know, Arch is, like I said off the top of the interview, one of my favorite players from the EPL generation. Always was heart on his sleeve. Battled. We had a couple of great tilts over our meetings together. But Arch, you play the game the way I like it to be played. You had a little bit of time out, then you came back to what was this new national league. You're in that league. You get your first ever suspension, and it's 13 games. I mean, talk about unlucky for some, 13 unlucky for some, maybe. What a piss take. I mean, talk us through getting banned and how you felt going into that. Obviously, we know right now, DOPS, it's a lottery. You might
Yeah,
win, you might lose, you might
Yeah.
get absolutely dry bummed. Who knows?
I did feel it was an absolute joke. Obviously, when Matty rang me and said, "Do you want to hear what they're giving you?" I went, "Go on then." And he said it was 13 games. I just laughed, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you want to do?" Because obviously, I would at the time, obviously going back, I was meant to be there just to help out and cover. Then it kind of stretched on, and then this 13 game kit ban came about. So it's like, do you just want to knock it, or do you want to just stay hanging around? And I'm like, no, I'm enjoying myself and whatnot. I'll still come to training, and then I'll carry on when I'm back. I'll see season out with you. That's just how it went. But 13 games for your first ever ban in your career, just massively excessive, and especially for what it was. And you know, I mean, it says resisting an official not once but twice. That never
Oh, I
happened.
do remember now, Arch.
That
Yeah,
didn't even happen. If you watch the videos,
no.
I'm not even with a referee. There's no one restraining me. All right, I might have gone a bit OTT, but to get a 13-game ban and saying you resisted an official in this out is nonsense.
The sad thing is that's not a shock given the standard of the Department of Player Safety now.
Nah, I mean some of the bans, and I mean obviously I've seen some of the ones that you put out recently for these slashes and things like that. I mean, yeah, they're a nasty, you know, they're not nice, some of them, but they're not worth 20 games. I mean, the kid in Hull, what for this check to the head, 25 games or something, were it?
Well, like, mate, it's basically like fucking Christmas or something. The way it worked out, the guy's going to be suspended until like January next year. What, you want him to keep going to a pay-to-play league, paying his subs, turning up to training each week for fucking 9 months, and he's not going to get to play a game? Like, how are you expecting these people to? They're going to start losing numbers, and until people start voting with their feet, which will happen eventually. Law of averages says it will. You can't keep running the game into the ground with what is essentially supposed to be for what it is, the title, Department of Player Safety. It's not a fucking pissing contest. It's not like, oh, we've got a little bit of power, let's shove as many games down someone as we can. Let's start objectively doing the bans correctly. There should be bans in place. Hits to the head, absolutely, when they are hits to the head.
Yeah.
Nasty slashes, spears, hits from behind in dangerous zones. Yep. Penalize, ban, absolutely. Willing combatants, stop that shit right away. Like, if two guys, they're big boys, decide that they want to settle things old-fashioned way, there can be no bans for that. They need to just start letting the game go back to how it was. What they've done this year has not improved the game, especially at the lower levels. It hasn't been as bad at National, but National 1, National 2, North and South, some of the bans that these kids have been getting in pay-to-play leagues and stuff, it's going to cripple the bottom end.
Yeah, they need to knock it on the head. I mean, the one I got was just stupid. I mean, you do stuff like that, like go back to the EPL days, you probably wouldn't have even got suspended.
No.
You'd have probably got a 2 and 10, or you'd have got booted out of the game, and that'd be it. Job done. You'd be playing again the next day.
Paisy would have blown you up into A3 and stuck you around fucking the Bauer Arena. Like, James Archer's in town. Said fuck the he said fuck the Steel Dogs. Like, he'll be selling it to the press. Like, mate.
I mean, I used to have battles against Paisy as well. I mean, we used to throw cross checks about at each other, and I remember one cross check I gave him. We were in Sheffield, and he was proper in face. And I just cross-checked him straight across the chest, but I hit him that, like, I proper went all in. Ended up going forward and headbutting him at the same time. It obviously falls down. He does his theatrics, doesn't he? But yeah, he was fun to play against.
Yeah, mate, even though I knew he liked me and we had like a mutual respect, some guys give you the heads up. I'd give most guys a heads up, and some I wouldn't. But like, if I come in to hit you, Arch, I'm coming. Like, fucking head up. I'm still gonna run you. Like, I'm still gonna run you, but I'm letting you know that I'm there. Whereas a Paisy, you'd be like, hey, Waddy, I'm coming. And then 2 periods later, boom, be like, fucking, what? You're not coming that time? You'd be like, yeah, I gotta keep you on your toes, man. I'd be like, oh fuck, all right. Just like broken ribs. Cheers, bud. But yeah, like, you knew you were in one when you were playing against Paisy.
Oh yeah, and he was a character of the game, weren't he? Like, pantomime villain. He loved it. He lived for the game. He was a hockey nerd. At the end of the day, he loved the game, and you know, I did enjoy my battles against him. But you do get players that you play against that are like that. That you have a good battle, and it's just what makes the sport enjoyable and fun, doesn't it? But now you can't really do that now because you're gonna get a ban.
Mate, I remember I was stood outside the Bison changing room, you know, before the fucking rink fell down, on the right hand side, the old side by the DJ box. And then Bavi's like, and welcome onto the ice, the Sheffield Steel Dogs. And in the middle of the rink, you got like Bud the Bison stood there in his fucking jeans and Bison t-shirt and a Bison hat. And fucking Paisy skates out, does a lap. and just cold clocks him with a right coming through the middle. You just see this Bunda Bison head go, boom! I was like, oh, that was so good. But mate, like as you say, character, like, and I mean, obviously, God rest his soul, not here anymore. Absolute legend. But anytime you have anyone on that played in that era, everyone, even though he was a nightmare to play against, everyone like all respected him. He was one hell of a tough mother as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can go back even further than that. Before Paisley came down to EPL, I mean, you got obviously when I started at Peterborough, you got Hammer. Hammer was another
Oh, yeah.
character, tough guy, but what a guy he is off the ice. But you find that with the the fighters and the guys that can drop them, they are the nicest of guys. I mean, my time in Coventry, room in the day, what a guy.
Oh,
What a
the
guy.
Nigerian Nightmare. By the way, there's some cool hockey nicknames around.
Yeah, me and Matty would have been about this, but like
the Nigerian Nightmare has got to be top 5 like NHL nicknames ever.
Yeah.
If you're looking down the like, back in the day looking through dropyourgloves.com and you find out that you're just about to play against this 6'4" black guy called the Nigerian Nightmare, and his last 3 seasons he's got fucking 1,200 pims, you're like, this is going to be a long night for me. Like, you're not going to be sleeping well that night if you're playing against him the next day.
Yeah. What? He was a big bloke too. He was a very big bloke.
Big. Speaking of big blokes, I'm not sure if the times line up, if he's still there. Did you play with Jason Robinson?
No, he was there.
Did you ever play against him?
I played against him because he was at Newcastle. And that was
Okay.
the time of Paul Verone, Paisley, Derek Campbell.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had
I'm glad out. By the way, I'm glad that out of the two out of the 3 that I thought was Paisley and Campbell and not Verone. I'll be forever thankful for the rest of my life that it was Paisley and DC. And that's no disrespect to those 2 dudes because they are about as tough as they come. Paul Verone, though, that guy was different. He was different.
Yeah, along with Mel the Mangler.
Oh,
good shout! Yeah,
Mel Angelstad. I remember being so like because obviously you talk about like Paisley being a hockey nerd. I was obsessed with hockey fighting my whole life. Like my whole life. 10, 5, me and my brother kicking the living shit out of each other. And I mean like legit toe-to-toe scraps out the front. And then like the old Wayne's World game off. And then like if we were fighting when a car came, we would just go straight back to fighting after the car's gone. But like we was obsessed with it. And I remember watching like Mel Angelstad in I think it was the EIHL then. And then when I heard he was coming to the UK, I can't explain how excited he was. Another guy that I liked watching before he came, you'd have played against him, maybe with him, Jason Rushton.
No, I played against him. He was at Romford.
Oof. A fucking scary human.
Yeah, he was. I remember him being at Romford.
And he had the skinhead and that stare.
And he had like the goatee. But Romford were just a horrible place back then. Nothing like what it is now. So, I mean, I'd probably say they've got the best ice in the league right now. I mean, their ice is
good. Well, shout out Sean Easton then, because Shawnee, as well as being Romford Raiders coach, Twilight's as the rink manager. So there you go, Sean. No, but mate, I don't think fans understand. You go good ice, bad ice. They go, what? It's ice. No, there's fucking good ice and there's bad ice. And when you skate on good ice, as a player, especially if you're 35, is a fucking dream. Like that's an extra 4 minutes. Like good ice buys those legs 4 extra minutes. That could be 6 shifts.
Yeah, it's a little easier on the hips with nice ice. I mean, go to Peterborough and you're done.
Yeah. Warm up. You just
don't have to warm up like
on the massage table at the end of warm up.
Down the one side where Peterborough come out now, it's like going over Mogul Hills. It's absolutely horrendous.
Mate, here we go then, because we're kind of all over the place on this interview, as I love though with the
In
EPL.
true fashion.
Yeah, but like, especially with the EPL ones, mate, we can go all over the place, and the fact that we're going to be bringing it back to current hockey soon. Well, I say soon, probably not soon. Maybe for 5 minutes at the end. Sorry, new school fans, suck it up. But old school's where it's at. And Mark, how many times on this podcast do we talk about if you're good enough, you're old enough?
Oh,
And in James Archer's case,
once a month.
once a month, yeah, at least. And in James Archer's case, he was good enough. So at 15 years old, he steps up and not in his hometown team, has to travel, but goes to the Peterborough Phantoms and gets a start. Arch, talk us through that, because it's something that we harp on about all the time. I know from my personal experiences, I was much younger than 16. You again. Talk us through getting that opportunity and how important it was. Well, the fact that you're still sitting here now in March in 2024 winning titles still. So something went right.
Yeah, so obviously, things were, I weren't getting on with some of the guys in Sheffield as a young lad. So, well, long story short, I was getting bullied. Do you know what I mean? It weren't a nice environment. So I'd come out of the rink. Something had happened one day, and I'd just come out of the rink to my mum and dad, and I just went, I quit. I'm not playing. Like, no, you're not. And then I ended up, I think I guested in a tournament for Peterborough with Stevie Johnson and Peacock's old man, with Timmy Peacock. And then they're just like, come and play, come to Peterborough, come and play for us. And we're like, so we looked at travel times and things like that. And we're like, it's hour and a half, hour 45 from home. So it's not too bad. So obviously I go down to Peterborough, and obviously, and it just takes off from there. Obviously playing with Kinga's lad at the time, Ewan was our goalie, and Kev's obviously down practices, and he takes me, Craig, Jamie Holland, Jimmy Ferrara, on senior practice, and it just went from there. He just liked what he saw. And it just went from there. Really, he gave me. I think my debut was actually against Milton Keynes. So what better game to make your debut in a local derby?
When it was a derby, yeah.
Yeah,
I think my Peterborough debut was against MK as well, I think.
Yeah, and I remember first the second shift, I get hit by Irvine. Oh no, it might be Simon Howard actually at the time.
Oh, Howie, jeez.
And Irvine were on the ice. And obviously I took this hit off Simon
That's
Howard.
another one you had to have your wits about you, eh, Arch?
Yeah. and that was it. I got hit, and that was it. Next thing, Chucky comes flying in, Morgs comes flying in, gloves and helmets over there, and obviously I'm just like, oh shit, what did I do here? What's going on? And that was it. It just took off for me. I just put myself about and give as good as you get. Basically, if you want to be amongst the boys and the men, then you've got to play like them and earn your spot.
Right, here we go then, Arch. Let's see if the timelines. What was you playing in the Coventry playoffs with the Chucky and Norm?
Yes. Yeah. When I was telling this story, actually, literally, probably last week, and it was about Chucky and Norm.
So I was playing for Slough. Were you on the bench for Peterborough?
And obviously, Chucky went, well, Chucky put someone through the windows of the Orange House at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got knocked out the night before, and that was it. Obviously, boys and beers, and they hated each other. And they ended up, having a bit of a tumble outside the Orange House, and one of them went through the window.
Yeah. Mate, the funny thing about that whole night was, well, obviously, as soon as we got knocked out, I've told this story on the pod a few times. So if you're old time listener, sorry, you're gonna have to suck it up, but it goes deep. So Norm and Kurt been going at it since like the start of the year. Absolute start of the year. And then it gets to about March, leading into the playoffs. And I remember it vividly. It's one of the only things that stick out of my career because I was like, I'm never going to see this again. Like, it was a one-time only Kurt Irvine special playing out right in front of my face. Norm stood in front of the net. He comes here in front of me. I'm tied up with Nick Poole in the front. Kurt skates behind Norm and he fucking two hands him in the back of the, like, behind the knees. Like, the hardest two-hander I've ever seen. Norm falls to the ice. Kurt reloads. Boom! Two hands him in the back of the head. I drop my gloves. Drop my gloves. Go to grab Kurt, and I feel this fucking arm come over my shoulder. It's Norm, like risen from the dead. Yeah. So Norm's grabbed him. Now I'm like paired off with like Gary Clark or someone. I don't know. Like no one that's fighting me anyway. Them two try and go at it. Norm's after the game wants to go in the locker room, like wants to kill him. Understandably, Norm. Sorry, Norm. Gotta tell the story again. I told him I wouldn't tell it anymore, but fuck it. So obviously Norm's ears all beat up. He's got like cauliflower ear going on. The back of his head's all beat up. And Nike had this helmet that looked like the fucking Crazy Frog lid. Like it came like this and it went over, and it had like built-in earpieces. Oh, so Norm could play at the weekend. They fucking rock up and they're like, Norm, we got this helmet for you. And they give it to him. And it's like round about the time of the Crazy Frog. So everyone's like, ring, ding, 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 just fucking giving it to him, right? We get to the Isle of Wight away. And he puts his helmet on for warm-up. And literally the whole team just start giving it ring. He's fucking losing his mind, raging. Anyway, like 4 or 5 weeks later, we go into the playoffs. We Romford lose, Slough lose, tease it up perfectly. We're in the Orange House. Stood with Norm. Like we're one of like there's like 3 Slough players in there. Like we're zip off kit, shower, bar, let's go. Like no other Slough players are in there. We get there, get to the bar, it's rammed. Look in front of me, and Kurt Irvine's stood in front of me and Norm. Norm taps him on the shoulder, he turns around, and Norm's like, oh, what? So that's what like teed it all off. And my favorite thing is because obviously this story's been told so many different times by so many different people on the podcast. I remember like getting paired up with Muzzy or fucking something. And everyone's out the front, like Ross Bowers is out there. Everybody's just kind of paired off, and like no one's really throwing any hands, but it's getting aggy. But then when Muzzy came on here, he goes, lost my brand new flip flop. Like it was really fucking lemon that he had lost his flip flop. But like my favorite bit of that whole night, and it's the forgotten bit of the whole weekend, is obviously we play this fucking shit 3rd v 4th. We get through the game, and then remember the goalie fight, Adam Dobson and Andy Moffat in the handshake, and they both fell over after 3 seconds. But about 3 a.m. in the kebab house opposite the Orange House, whatever had happened, I don't know what had happened, but these 2 boys were ready fucking square go each other at the kebab van. Like everybody is again, like crowds are drawn. It's like all the Rumford boys and all the Slough boys are all together. We're about to play each other tomorrow. We've just been drinking in the fucking nightclub down the road, having a good time together. Maybe like drinking with Andy Power. That guy can drink. But yeah, that guy can drink. And then yeah, they have this fight in the handshake. And that was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the last ever 3rd and 4th at the EPL / National / NIHL 1, whatever you want to call it, event ever. So you're welcome, people. You are welcome. Arch, talk us through playing with guys like Chocky and that. You're a young guy. Chocky's an absolute beauty. One of my favorite again, like yourself, competitors to play against. How was it playing with him?
Yeah, you know, as a young lad, obviously it's nice to have guys like that on your team because it allows you to play. It allowed you to play back then and not be frightened, I guess, if you want. Because obviously you are. I mean, I was a kid. The no bottom line, I was 15, 16. I'm still a kid. So it just gives you a little bit of peace of mind that no one's gonna take a run at you and get away with it like they do now. So having guys like, you know, Chucky Morgs, Hammer, you know, these guys, it you know, a good physical presence, and that's what they were. But they were good blokes in locker room, and you know, I mean, I played on the line with Doug McEwen, so if you did something wrong or something that weren't quite right, it'd tell you, but they'd tell you in the right way. Do you know what I mean? They were good. They were good mentors, basically. It was just one of those locker rooms, and as you're learning as a young guy, and that's kind of what I've tried to do going along in my own career. You know, to young guys coming up, is not to be short and frank with me like, oh, what are you doing? That was just fucking shit. What are you making that play for? It's just like, oh, you know, look here, or you know, drive wide, button hook, look for the late guy. That, you know, that just the simple things. And, you know, hopefully I've tried to pass that on a bit this year to some of the younger guys on Leeds team, because it is a young team. So, and you see it happen, you've been through it yourself. Do you know what I mean? Well, yeah. So, but it was good.
You can't buy experience of like being a nipper and Doug McEwen on your line.
Well, no, but I mean,
like,
but
what?
as a kid though, you grow up watching him when he's arena playing against Steelers, and even Chinny and Tony, obviously playing with Tony. Like, these are guys that you grow up as a kid watching, and then you at 1 minute you're playing against them, and then next thing you're on the same team. It's mental.
Oh, so you said Chinny's name, a story just popped into my head with a Peterborough connection. So I remember we're playing for Slough, and obviously the Peterborough away changing room was like two tiny wee changing rooms together over the back way with like a fucking door in the middle. Anyway, we come off at the end of the first, I don't know, we're 3-0 down. Whatever it is. The score probably changes every time I tell this story, but I think the scores are relevant. Either way, we're getting our fucking titties handed to us. And Warren's like, right, everybody come in here. We all get in. And I'm in the worst seat possible because I'm sat eye opposite Terry Miles. Like, when you know you're about to get bollocks, you do not want to be sat opposite fucking Tell, right? Because it's just, he's David Brent. He's like he's Ricky Gervais. He's David Brent. Like, his face, it just makes you laugh. And anyway, was cleans us out pretty good. And then Chinny goes to clean us out. He goes, "You cunts!" And his voice just squeaks like, and he's angry, like fucking prime Chinny angry, and his voice squeaked, and like everybody was like, do you know when you're trying not to laugh? I was like, oh, if we laugh now, someone's gonna get a fucking broken jaw for sure. Chinny's gonna kick the table and the skate grinder into somebody's stall. But mate, like, oh, so grateful that that's the era that we grew up playing in.
Oh, yeah, it was a good time, but the respect level in the league back then though was so much higher than what it is now. Like, guys respected each other. Like, no matter whatever happened, I always felt there was a level of respect in the league, and you just don't get that now.
Would you say guys run their mouth more?
Great question.
Yeah, 100%. 100% guys run their mouths a lot more than back then. But even if they ran them back then, they'd follow it up. Whereas now, if you run your mouth, the guys are just they don't follow up what they're saying. It's like, well, if you're going to run your mouth, back it up. Like, you can't say some shit that you're saying and get away with it. Like, there's always got to be, you know, a reaction to what's being said, and guys hide behind it, and they just don't follow stuff up anymore. It's just one of them things. It's disappointing that the game's gone that way, but it's probably not just down to the game. It's probably just the way the world is now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But it's also not really helped when there's going to be guys that want to step in but can't because they're going to get banned. We touched on it earlier. If guys step in now because someone's running their mouth, they could face like 6 games.
Yeah, and that's it. I do think there's an element of the guys in the league now know what they can get away with, and so they'll do it because they know people aren't going to risk getting stupid bans or things like that. But yeah, things have got to change on the ruling front on that and the ban side of it.
The thing is, I think how many fans don't stand up when there's a fight? One, fucking two, because they might not be able to. Every single other person in that building is standing up when there's a fight. Like, it's exciting, and we don't need a goon show. Like, we don't need out and out meatheads, but guys that can police the game themselves. And what you end up with is a game that I thought the ref in the game between Hull and MK during during the League Cup final at the weekend. I'm struggling here, not weekend. Fucking hell, I'm getting it all wrong. Hull versus MK on Wednesday last week in the NIHL Cup final. There we go. Bloody hell. Struggle bus. But the ref it like old school, and there was coming togethers, but no penalties. There was, chirps and maybe a little cross check here or there after a whistle. But it was no penalty in the first and no penalty in the third. It was consistent, and it allowed to bring a bit of toughness, a bit of edge, a bit of grit into what was a very, very good game.
Yeah, and the game needs it. I do think the game still needs that grit, that bit of physicality, because otherwise it's not hockey, is it?
No, it's really not. And sorry, Mark, go.
I think what the game seems to be missing now more is accountability more than anything.
Yeah, 100%.
The other thing is, I think when I was growing up, there was always accountability to your teammates first and foremost. Like, I remember being in a push and shove. We're going to use Chinny again for an example, but you go talk about being like a young guy playing with the old guys. I just came up from the Bison, maybe had like 2 or 3, 4 fights in the Elite League, and only 16, 17. So when I go to Slough, I'm just turned 18. And I was getting like, in the mix after whistles and cross-checking guys and shit. I hadn't really fought. Ginny was like, you need to stop doing that until you fucking drop your gloves. And like, okay, I was like, okay, Mr. Chin, okay, it's no problem, sir. Like, next chance that I got in that melee, I was like, hey, bud, do you want to go? And like, that's what. But that was good, because it was like, if you're gonna go in there and start running your mouth and mixing it up and chopping and slashing and doing whatever, chirping as you say, you need to be willing, and you need to show you're willing. But that was a respect thing. That I respected Chinny. He'd been there. He'd done it. If that's what he's telling me, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and the other thing as well that don't really happen in the game anymore. No one squares off. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, who can quickly get the upper hand. There's no for me, like, respect. It's either someone's going to grab you and jump you, or they're just you're gonna both say yeah, but it's whoever literally drops and grabs him first, and to get kind of the upper hand. There's no like, all right, we'll square off type thing that there used to be. Do you know what I mean? It has changed a hell of a lot.
Love the square off. Square offs, I can't explain to you unless you've been in one, right? In a packed fucking ice rink with all your boys stood on the bench. Square off it, buckets off, center ice is about as exciting as life gets. Like, yeah, there's not many things that top it. Because you could get fucking knocked. Because you could get knocked out. Like it's a very real possibility that you're gonna go to sleep in front of 3,000 people.
Yeah, but you just don't. It's one of the things you don't think about it at that time. You're just so in the moment.
Shit.
You're fired up, or you're just like, yeah, let's fucking go. Let's have it.
But it's so exciting. Even if it's not you, like if it's your line mate, like I'm equally as fired up. I'm getting all the right hormone hits, even if it's not me. Like like I said, like no one's sitting when that's there. You're, especially if that's one of your teammates. You're up. You're on the bench. You're fired up. When people go, "What do you mean it fires the boys up?" it fucking fires you up. Like I can't explain. Like it's like getting deep heat in your Japs eye fired up. Like you are ready to go. You're like the old Doberman pincer with the elastic band around the balls after that because it teases you out. If one of your boys goes to battle for you, that's huge on the bench, don't you think, Arch?
Oh yeah, it gets you up. It definitely, it just rallies everyone, doesn't it? Especially if you're behind as well or in a tied game and you've got to win it. Like it just gets the boys going. It always does. It's a game changer, and that's why I think it does still hold a purpose in the game because it can just flip a game on its head.
Absolutely can. And I think it allows your skilled players, like you said earlier when you talked about coming through, you got Chucky there, you got Morgs there, Hammer. It allows you to, because you were a skillful youngster, right? So it allows you to have those reps, touch that puck, take an extra step maybe where if you don't have those guys on your team, you don't have the privilege of that extra step or that extra hand or that extra half a second on the puck. Playing with those guys on your roster gives you that extra half second, which is huge.
Oh yeah, it massively helps. But again, though, going back to that, you had a lot of tough guys on each team back then. You needed those bodies on behind you as well when you're going up against your Chins, your Greeners, and God, who else can we think of back then? It's hard to cast my mind back that far, but there was a lot of tough
Vinny
bodies.
Zavaro, Nathan
Yeah.
Remps was tough.
Rems.
Rushton,
What was
Crombie.
the other guy at Guildford, the D man. It was towards the back end of the EPL year, but the big
Coveted.
Oh,
him. He was a big old boy as well.
He was a prick.
He had a massive Swede, didn't he?
I didn't like him. There's not many guys that I played with that I didn't like. I did not like him at all. Like, I didn't like playing against him, and then I moved there, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's a fucking prick." I would have square goed him in practice for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he was a
We had a
strong
couple of
beast.
guys like that. Oh, well, maybe you had a different experience. I'm sure you played with him. Well, what was your experience of Christopherson like?
Marcus, obviously, it was his first year. I found him all right. It was quite quiet probably back then. I don't know what it'll have been like in Guildford, but obviously your first season you play with Tony and Hups and you're putting up 100 points and bagging goals for fun. Maybe he went to Guildford a bit cocky. I don't know.
You think? Yeah. Fuck. And Hups was injured, right? Hups is I think he'd been carrying Fordy's piano. His fucking back was a mess. And he couldn't get going, and then he was in and he was out, and he was in and he was out. So Hups was depressed.
Yeah.
Great guy, by the way.
Yeah,
Absolute
he is a guy that just gets on himself, though, doesn't he? Like if he's
on
not
himself.
like
Mate, he's the sort of guy, you give him 6 breakaways in a game, he scores 5. He's going to snap his stick over the crossbar because he missed the 6th one. Like, he'd be like, fuck, he should have scored 6.
yeah,
Dude,
and
you
he could
can't even tie your skates, mate. He did. Towards the end, Digger brought him out to, fuck, I don't know. Was he trying to get enough games to qualify for the playoffs? Or, I don't know, maybe they thought they were going to give him a new back at the fucking clinic there in Guildford. I don't know what they thought, but anyway, he's out. He's just going to play PP. And he misses a shot, which was not an easy shot. And he's on himself on the bench. It's like, Hups, you didn't even tie your skates today. He's like, yeah, well, mate, his back was so bad. But yeah, we had Toffee.
Always suffered a little bit of a bad back here and there, like even in Manchester.
I don't know if you played with him in Manchester. No. Do you play with Sharpie?
Yeah, Manchester.
What did you think of Sharpie, by the way?
I love the guy. He was
Loved
brilliant.
him. I think for me, do you know when people go, oh, who would I be surprised about? Andrew Sharp. The polar opposite of The polar opposite
you
of
see
what
how
he is on the
ripped he is
ice.
right now?
Mate, he's the nicest fucking softly spoken guy you've ever met. Just
Yeah,
loves going to the gym. He eats
he's
well. He's a
absolutely.
machine.
He's an absolute unit right now. Have you seen him on Facebook? He's ripped. He's
Yeah, he's like,
absolutely.
what was he saying? Dad bod birthday or something, like 42. He's fucking shredded within an inch of his life.
Yeah, but yeah, Sharpie was a good guy, and he's another guy that'd do out for anyone, and it, another tough customer. But and obviously he's got his own hockey academy now. I mean, he seems to be doing very well with it. So I mean,
Shout
kudos to
out
him.
Sharpshooter Hockey Academy in Canada, doing great things for junior development. He's having kids drafted to the show and shit that
Yeah,
have
I
been going
saw
through
that.
his program, man. It's amazing. Just
Yeah,
goes to show, though, right? You don't have to be the best player. And Sharpie never ever said that he was the best player. He knew his role, and in fact, out of anyone I've ever played with, I think he knew his role better than anybody. But undercover, like when you're playing for Juice on a Wednesday, you want Sharpie on your fucking team for the 3-on-3 cross ice. He's gonna backhand shelf, bar down and shit out there. You're like, pick Sharpie. Like, mate, it was mad. On the Guildford, and that was the most intense practice of the week in Guildford. It was a Friday afternoon, and there'd be a session skate on. So we would only get the end zone, the home end zone, and they put boards across and nets, and we just play 3-on-3, and it was fucking intense. No one wanted to lose. Be like young guys v old guys, Brits v imports, whatever. You know how it used to be, Arch.
yeah.
But that was when like cross checks started to fly, like like things are getting heated, and that was massive. Getting to play with those guys, good players. You lucky enough, you got to play with some great players. Who would you say is the best kind of British players over the years you've got to play with? Because obviously, right now we're gonna get to Kieran Brown in a minute, but let's kind of stick to the old generation for now. Who who stands out? Because you got some studs. Adam Walker, were you there in Manchester when he put up like 56 goals or
No,
whatever it was?
Walks was there the year before I went, but
Yeah.
then he came and I can't remember if he came back for the full season or part of the season. I think it was probably the last season we actually had in Manchester before obviously went to D-side and then Blackpool. So he did come back, but no, that was the year of Ed Coat. He was with Ed Courtney and Tony on it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I don't know. Like, it's a tough one because I mean, Ollie Brannaman was sick as a kid.
Yeah, sick. So sick.
He was obviously. I mean, Sean Thompson, never the fastest of guys, but he could put a puck on your tape and he could score too. I mean, he was great at penalty shootouts. So Tomo, I mean, obviously Craig Peacock was a very, very good Brit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stud.
Joe Miller.
Joe Miller, yeah.
Miller.
Stick hand on a phone box, that guy.
God,
His hands were phenomenal.
There's a lot to go through, and that was it back then. Like there was so many good Brits about, so many like
every team was stacked. Like I was thinking back to my year in Basingstoke. Let me pull this up real quick because when you start looking. My year in Basingstoke, and when you talk about the depth in the EPL versus the national, and is the EPL better? Is the national better? Well, I mean, anyone that was there knows it's not really a question. Of course, this isn't working right now. Let's try it on here. Anyone that was there knows that the EPL was just a different level. Especially, Archie, you can probably attest to this. The year that the BNL folded and all the fucking Scottish boys came down, like Paddy and Wish and all that lot.
Yeah.
And then like Guildford had like Lucas Smittle as a fucking spare import. So, do you know what I mean? He'd had 127 points the year before, and he was a spare import. Like it was madness.
Yeah,
but I'm just gonna look.
They had that luxury though, didn't they? They'd got the money to carry the extra import and have a spare compared to other teams. But the EPL, for me, compared to the league now, the EPL was a better league. There was more depth. Now, that's no disrespect to any of the guys now, because it's not all. There's some quality hockey players in the NIHL still. But
Of course there is, yeah.
in terms of depth, and especially the goalkeeping side of it, the goalkeepers, back then, I feel was better than they are now. And
I
again,
agree.
that's no disrespect to the guys that are about now at all, because again, there is some good goalies about, but it was every team had a good goalie.
At least one.
And I don't feel it's really the case as much now. But that, does that come down to the training that they received, in recent days? Is it there's just no one coming through? Is the desire of the kids there to want to push on, or are they just happy plodding along?
Great question. That's a great question. Mark, what do you think?
Oh, sorry, I've got another question in my head.
Okay, go for that. Go for that.
And that is
I've got
because we're
nothing on
speaking
that.
about speaking on the goalies. I remember you had quite a big success against one of the best goalies in the EPL, and that was Stevie Lyle. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was like, again, Stevie, top goalie in the, well, even in the Elite League back then, or in the BNL, in the BNL, and I mean, he played abroad and he played in France. He was the top British goalie that we've had probably before Ben Bound's era.
Yeah.
And obviously, came off my deathbed, if you like, one day, and managed to tuck 5 past him in one game. And I did ask him after if it had ever happened before, which he said no. So I could take that as a little win for myself there over my career, I guess. But yeah, there's not many goalies like him about, especially not today.
When you score 5 in a game, what goes right? Well, fucking everything, obviously. Everything, obviously. But like, it just, I don't know. I've done it once, and it just felt like, I don't know, you win a face-off, drive the net, D-man shoots, your stick's just there, and I don't know, when you score that many, it just felt like pucks attracted you like a magnet.
Everything I touched was golden that night. But yeah, I was sick as a dog. I remember being, having to get my sister to come and get my daughter. I think my daughter was, a year old, maybe 18 months at the time, and I couldn't move. I was vomiting. I was really ill. And I said, rang my sister, like, Kirst, can you, I've got a game later. I'm really struggling. Can you come and get Freya for me and have her till Nicole's home or my mum's home? And, I'm going across to Manchester later. So obviously, Kirsty came and got Freya for me, and I just literally, I was in bed all day until going to the game. Obviously, I get to the game. I said to Tony, I said, look, Tony, I'm not right well. I've been bad. You'll be fine. You're good. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll play. And obviously, when you're on a line with Tony Anden as your coach, you don't say no. And the puck was on my tape, and it was just easily done.
What was it like playing for Tony? Because we've interviewed Tony on here, but we've also interviewed loads of different people that have played for Tony. Everyone seems to have a different experience. How was your experience playing with Sir Tony?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was fine with Tony. I found him easy to play with, and we kind of just, I knew what he wanted, so it was easy. Like, it was literally, if we're in the defensive zone, he's always going to be in the middle, always. So it's just get the puck to the middle, get it to Tony, fly down the wing, get to the offense, get open, and he'll find you. I found it really quite easy to play with Tony, which is probably why I was so successful for many years playing with him, and why he kept me on his line. It just worked. I just had an understanding and knew what he wanted. So my experience of Tony was absolutely fine. And obviously on the flip side, I've seen how it can be with other guys. So
one of my favorite Tony stories is obviously Carl Graham played with me in Basingstoke. Tell this story. Tony comes back to the bench one day. Yeah. He goes, if you see me on the ice, you go for a fucking line change. You're never on the ice when I'm on the ice. Like me and you, we're not on the ice together. You see me come on, you get off. like, okay, good talk.
Well, I've got another story now. I wasn't here this year, the year this happened, but the story that I was told, it was hilarious. I mean, I don't know if you've had Phoney on here or Boover, but they'd probably be able to tell it better because they was there. But he was in the changing room and Tony he weren't happy. Obviously, something must have happened during the game and he weren't happy. And he'd got the board and it'd got the foot, the board with the 4 suckers. And obviously, Tony would sit right at the front of the changing room. He'd have his little chair under the TV. To the right-hand side we'd have a fridge. So obviously, you'd have your drinks in it and, milk, things like that as you do as the team. And Tony were apparently going off at the guys. He'd got his board and he fucking launches it. And obviously, because it's got the suckers on it, it just stuck to the fridge. Apparently, the boys were just sinking into the shirts, just trying not to absolutely break out and laugh, because Tony is like, if you've ever seen Tony lose it, he goes bright red and he gets angry. He's Scottish, and he loses it.
He's got this face, this complexion.
And obviously the boys apparently were just trying not to absolutely lose the shit and just start rolling on the floor with laughter just because of this moment of the board just hitting the fridge perfect. But Tony, is another. I like Tony. Like, it was, and his stats and everything, the career he had, it speaks for itself.
I'm just
stick
trying to
with
figure
the EPL then.
on,
Actually, yeah, I want to stick on the EPL and say, other than Sir Tony, who's the best player that you played against?
Played against?
Yeah,
some good ones, Arch? There's some really good ones. Like Pink and Seski, mate, when them two fucking first came, they were a joke.
They were two very good players.
Smittle, when he first came, joke.
Smittle, obviously, the early days of Smittle, like, I mean, the way he skated, it was just so effortlessly and slick.
Especially on that big Guildford ice pad. I remember the coach going, "What are you're on Smittle today?"
But even when
Since
even
when?
When he were in Bracknell as well, like,
has a big rink as well, though. Bracknell.
Yeah, the other Czech guy,
Martin
Massa,
weapon,
massive legs.
Another
legs like tree trunks.
Great import. There's a lot of when I think about it,
that Schnabel that was in Manchester was good.
Yeah, Schnabel, what a guy!
He was so good. As if Grant McPherson squared up with him.
I know.
Tapped in the head, like.
I mean, Schnabs didn't want it. He knew, like. I remember those.
I kill you. Like, okay, fucking scary. He was scary, dude.
I mean, Schnabs obviously he played in NHL, didn't he? Like, I mean, the only reason he did it, he came out of it. He got a slash across his wrist, I think, and broke his wrist. That was him done.
That was it.
So he never recovered from that.
Oh, this is good. Good question, Mark. Arch,
I've got another good question.
One sec. Keep that one in the bank. Arch, come on. We are around long enough. Let's go through the eras. So when you came through, it was probably Kyle Amiot and Andy Power were probably ripping it up when you first came through.
Marshall, Sniper.
Danny Marshall, like Gary
Tough.
Clark for MK,
yeah.
scoring 60 goals a year every year.
Mikko Skinari, he was so slick being
Stud. Joel Petkoff never went in his own zone the entire fucking UK career,
Yeah,
but scored 75 goals a year.
Yeah, I mean, he came up in conversation on the coach a few weeks back actually with Aldi, because like, you know, obviously Aldi was of that era.
Yeah.
So he's obviously we talk about obviously way back then.
Are you two down the front like the fucking old guys now?
Like, yeah. Oh, he's
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
it's not the old guys at the back anymore like it used to be. The old guys
No.
get pushed down the front. It's the young bucks at the back now. That's how things are.
Mark, sorry, you had another question, mate.
I got another one I wanted to check in there. What about Brent Goff?
Oh,
Goffer, yeah. Great. All rounder, one of the best. Like, great on draws.
so good on the
Could
draw.
put the puck in the net. He was a great passer. He was a very smart hockey player. I mean, you go back to him, Taras Remsky, Maris Zedins, Peter had a Rems.
By the way, that Zedins was one of the best. No one talks about him. One of the best players in
sailed under the
EPL
radar.
history. Like, points aren't everything. Just
No.
give me that guy on my team every fucking day of the week.
He just sailed. He just kept a low profile, and he was very good.
Mate, he scored against fucking Sweden in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, he scored against Sweden in the Olympics.
I mean,
That's like scoring a try against the All Blacks. Like, come on, that is as mega as it gets. He was a good hockey player. Do you talk about Brent Goff though? Worst concussion I ever got, and it was a pure accident. Me and Goffer always knew. I had a massive respect for Goffer. Turned up ice in Bracknell, puck got cycled back in the corner, and I turned. And as I turned, I had my head down. I turned here, and Goffer was there. And my head hit him in the middle of his chest. Like, he didn't hit me. Like, he didn't move. It wasn't his fault. It was my fault. Hardest human being other than Ricky Plant I've ever had a collision with.
Yeah, he was a big body as well, Goffer.
Mate, my head. That was the only real concussion that I got. Where I hit Goffer in the corner, I went down to my knees, and I was like, I'm gonna jump back up. And I looked to try and find the bench, and I was like, oh, I got fucking nothing. I was like, I got nothing. Couldn't see that side of the rink, and I was like, I'm in trouble. Like, this can't be good. Goffer was like the most apologetic dude ever, as you played with him, so you know, like,
a gentle guy. Well, you know, I love just a good bloke.
What about Dwayne Newman?
Oh,
no. Gentleman
Class.
of gentlemen, isn't he?
Class.
What I mean,
By the way, my number one podcast target ever is Dwayne Newman.
I mean, you'll not come across a more intense guy than Dwayne Newman. Like, and he'd always shake your hands, like stare you in the eye. Always, he'd always
Like
have
this.
eye contact. Yeah,
Just dialed in.
and he'd block shots for fun, wouldn't he? He didn't care whether they were off his legs, off his face, off his chest, in his teeth. He's blocking that puck.
I'm pretty sure one year in Basingstoke, when I was a kid growing up, we had Dwayne Newman and Matt Cote on the same team. I think the goalie got fucking 7 shots a weekend. Like, it's just these two out front, just like, just... Remember Kevin Conway hitting Matt Cote in the ear with a slap shot. And like, Scott Conway's good and he's a stud and shit, but his dad were those old Montreals with a fucking Euro curve on him. With that wooden bit of timber. Like, when he got that thing wired up, that thing traveled.
I've got one. I've still got one of his dad's sticks in my garage.
That's legendary.
You know, as a kid, I got it from a Steelers game. And I got his stick.
Legendary.
It was a Vic, a wooden Vic, and the curve was mental.
Like, when I say it's like this, people, that's a better angle. It used to be called the Euro curve, and Montreal brought this thing out.
It was
And back in the day, we used to get a heat gun, You get fucking blowtorch on the back of it and you whack it in the door and just like, just bend it up into any shape until the last 2 minutes, and then you'd see all these imports skating around with straight sticks because that was when people used to call the old illegal stick penalty. That sort of just died like the dodo bird. But
there was a guy at Peterborough as well who had a very strange stick blade. I don't know if you'll remember Ross McIntosh.
yeah, I remember Mac.
His stick blade used to be like about that big. He used to cut them down. They were tiny.
Mark, have you
And
lost?
I never
Oh, no,
understood
got it
it.
there.
They used to be cut down to used to cut them down and they'd be like that. They'd be tiny.
So
Never
in my
understood it.
experience, the one that I've never seen before, since, played with a guy called Martin Philippe, Czech guy. And when I played with him in Basingstoke, his blade was like a goalie paddle almost. And then he drilled 5 holes into it. This is obviously now all the fucking stick companies are doing this shit now. This was in 2003. This guy was like drilling holes in the middle of his blade. He'd tape his stick, and then he'd get the chisel out, and he'd chisel the bottom bit of his stick off. And he'd wax the rest of it, and then just throw 80-foot mean pizzas, like tape to tape. This guy was just like a passing wizard. He was like, he wasn't as good as player as Jonas Hoog. But if you think how good Hoogie was on the puck and how good he moved it, Martin was like that kind of silky. You'd just be skating and the puck would land on your stick. You'd be like, how the fuck has he done that? Source over 4 guys to your tape. Everyone in practice is trying to use this guy's stick, right? Guys are shooting off the ceiling. They're knocking the Dale Uchin fucking retired jersey off the wall, like stuff's going everywhere. This guy though, he could pass to a 5 pence piece from anywhere in the rink. Nothing. It was mad. Never seen anything like it.
You know what? Speaking about, I remember seeing Tony make a play. This is to Marcus Christopherson now, and it was in MK, and literally, I remember we was on the bench, and obviously Tony makes this play, and the puck goes in the net, and literally all of us are like, "What the? How
just
the?
happened there?
What just happened there?" Because Tony literally just pulled up on the blue line, stops. Marcus is coming down the far boards. Literally, Marcus has got literally almost behind the back of the net, but he sticks at the back post. So he's stretching, he's like this. Tony just literally puts on his tape, Marcus behind the back of the net, hits his stick in, and everyone's like, what? That is mental. Like that
Weapon,
pass,
mate.
just ridiculous. And it's just one of those passes that stays with you.
What was it like when you obviously you were there towards the end of Manchester? I think you said you were D-side Blackpool. What was it like when, you know, it looked like the writing was on the wall and you're getting told this is going to be okay, it's not going to be okay? Guys didn't know whether they were coming or going. Some guys were leaving. How was all that when it came to it for a player's perspective?
Demoralizing. And I think for me as a player, that is probably when I started to dislike hockey, if I'm honest. I think that's probably when it all started. Because obviously I took a bit of time out through COVID, you know, personal reasons and whatever. Like I hated hockey, but I think it really started probably back then for me. Because obviously Manchester, you know, I'd been there 7-8 years. And then next thing you're playing out of D-side for whatever reason, you know, all the shit that went off. It is what it is. You get told, you know, we were told you're going to be in a rink, then you're at D-side. And then you're told it's going to get better, then you're at Blackpool. I didn't go to Blackpool. I made the decision that after D-side, that was it. I was moving on. And I went back to Peterborough. You know, I went and played for you know, for Slammer that year.
You didn't fancy going on a Big Dipper, no?
Nah, I couldn't do it anymore. Like, we'd not got a rink. You'd not got a home. Do you know what I mean?
No locker room, no nothing.
Nah, and it weren't the same. I mean, when we was in Manchester, it was so close-knit. Me, Boother, Neely, Benwood, Phoney. You know, there were always a good core bunch of lads that had been there for years. And literally, the atmosphere and it just completely shifted because after when we got a rink and we'd got his own home, every Thursday we'd go for food as a team. Without fail, we'd either go to Nando's or we'd go to Almost Famous every Thursday after practice without fail. And then we'd go back to apartments. You know, there'd be 5 or 6 of us in Neil's apartments, and we'd sit and watch Celebrity Juice.
That's
And
right.
that's what it was. That was our Thursday. And then obviously, you know, we'd go to bed after that. We'd get up, we'd train the next morning, and then we'd be going for breakfast as a team.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing.
Yeah, and that was the same every week for years. And then
I think that's what Bristol are doing well, Arch. They've got, obviously, I think location's a big part of it, and you read into the rest of it what you will. But when we played, there was 2, 3, 4 team houses. After an away game, everyone could crash. You could go out. You could do whatever you wanted to do. Budgets, whatever it is, has stopped a lot of that. Bristol, I think they've got like 10 guys living down there full time. That's massive for building that camaraderie, building that core. What MK did so well over the years. All those boys lived there. They're all around each other. 8, 9, 10, 11 years, some of these guys.
Yeah, and it helps. It brings you a good locker room. And it's same. I mean, it's same in Leeds now. You've got the core guys. You've got Kieran Brown. You've got Balder. You've got Gozzy, Griff. You've got Walker. Do you know what I mean? You've got these guys that have been there now for a long time, and they do that stuff. And for me, with it being my final year, it is so familiar because it is very much built and set up like it was in Manchester. So it's been really nice from that point of view and a changing room point of view. They're going to go on to, you know, bigger and better things. I think Leeds, whether they move up leagues, I don't know, but they will. You know, they'll keep building and building. It's such a great organisation and setup that they've got there.
I mean, I've played for Steve, so I know what he's all about. And he was ahead of the curve getting learn to play, adult learn to play, fucking in-house leagues in Swindon, all these things. He was 100 people, 120 people, fucking 90 kids signed up to this. Like, and guess what? That equates to fans through the door on a Saturday. Like, on a weekend, you keep bringing all these people in, so you learn to play programs and you skate and you do this and you do that. Come Saturday, these people are then they're gonna get their 15 quid out, they're gonna buy a ticket to the Wildcats and they're gonna come. And he built such a good community in Swindon, and he seems to be doing the exact same thing in Leeds. And the trophies they're gonna help because Swindon don't have the benefit of a couple of league titles where Leeds do. And it's huge for Leeds, and you're in such a great sporting city as it already is. And you're in, from what I understand, a very good location. World's your
Yeah,
oyster when you're that organization.
it's easy to reach. It's easy to get to.
Gonna piss.
It is a good setup, and it's like I say, yeah, there's such a good atmosphere in that locker room, and they are going to keep on building and going, you know, from strength to strength, and they've got a very good coach there. Do you know what I mean? Aldi's been around. He's coached at EPL level. He's coached kids, and then he's come back again. He's done it all. He knows how to motivate people, how to get them going. He doesn't stand for any shit. He is a good mentor for those young guys.
Old school vibes.
Yeah, very much. He's straight down the line. You know what you're getting with him. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I get from him this year. You just know what he wants, and you know how he's going to be. So it's straight down the line with him.
Well, going with coaches and managers, I want to ask you, other than, of course, the current situation you're in, because I think that would be disrespectful to say, but I'm going to say the EPL, who was the best coach that you played under?
Great question, what?
I mean, I've had a few good coaches. Obviously, I mean, my first coach, like I thought was a good coach, and obviously it gave me my shot at EPL, and that's Kinga. I thought it was obviously back then. Obviously, yeah, I'm a kid, but for me, Kinga was a good coach. And then other than that, obviously, I had Tony for a long time. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, you get used to the same stuff. I mean, going away
By the
from
way, if you've never met Kevin King or had a conversation with Kevin King, ladies and gents, and you get the opportunity to have a conversation with Kevin King, I'd fucking suggest you do it. You will not be disappointed. Like one of the all-time beauties of UK hockey, and you can see like why Damo and Ewan, such good lads.
yeah, and you know what? I think for me, obviously, Kinga left. Probably he might have left far too soon. You know, from the coaching roles. You know, for whatever reason, maybe I know he weren't getting some results and things like that, and he stepped away when it was Peterborough. And then I can't remember if he went to either Romford or Chelmsford or someone like that for a short time, but maybe he just fell out of love with the game and coaching, and just had enough and thought, I've had my time type thing. As it happens, doesn't it? You give up a lot, like as a player. You're self-40 when we're playing. It's solid for 7-8 months of a year. You're training twice a week, your games twice a week, the travel. I mean, we were on about it the other day. The Solway boys, I think they left something like 7:30 in the morning to go down to Bracknell. They're not going to
Yes,
get.
great.
They're not going to get back home until 3, 4, maybe even 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. That's a long journey, and the amount of hours that you put into travel, to training, and everything for this sport, you give up a
For
lot.
fucking peanuts, mate. Let's have it right.
Yeah.
Do you know what? If you're making $1,000 a week, so someone says you've got to sit on the bus for 20 hours, you go, right, I'm gonna suck at the fuck up. I'm gonna suck at the fuck up today. I'm gonna get on the bus. Some of these guys are on a lot less, and this isn't a disrespect to the fans, but I think when you're like online giving them fucking shit on Twitter, and you're like you call them out like -3 tonight. You just worked a fucking 60-hour week. Kids got tonsillitis. The other kids have got GCSEs, and they've had a 23-hour road trip. Maybe they're not going to play so good at home. They're getting like 120 quid a week.
I mean, some players, it's that.
If that, yeah, absolutely. If that, mate. So maybe get off their back a little bit.
I mean, I wouldn't know anymore, but I know obviously back in the day, sometimes guys were playing for 30, 40, 50 quid a week.
Wasn't a lot. Like I when I played in low budget teams, Arch, obviously Bees were a low budget team. Isle of Wight was a low budget team. Like I played on low budget teams. Like I was always okay, but I was on one of the top 2 lines most of the time.
Yeah.
But the guys on 3 and 4, not okay. Like they fucking wouldn't cover the tires that you go through in a season. Wouldn't cover the fuel that you rinse through. The car parks, the fucking Costas on the road, the McDonald's and the Burger King after a post game. Like these guys' wages weren't. They genuinely weren't covering that.
Nah, and it don't. You know, at the end of the day, they do it because they enjoy the game. They enjoy being around the boys, and they're doing it for the love of the game.
Of course they are.
But yeah, those journeys, and that's why retirement comes about. Like it takes its toll on your body, it takes its toll on your mind, and you just think, I'm doing this for that, and then it's like, yeah, I'm out, and it happens. Guys retire early, like they're done. Obviously, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to not be in that position, but as a youngster starting out, and that's where sometimes people probably get ahead of themselves as kids these days because they think, oh, we're playing juniors, I was putting up points, and I'm not even getting on now. It's like, yeah, but you're playing with men. You got to earn your spot.
Sorry, Mark, go.
I wanted to say my last question to you actually in this interview is going to be, you've announced at the end of this season that you're going to be retiring, and actually I think that's really sad for for the likes of myself and many others that are still kicking around that have watched British hockey for a long time, because you've been an absolute fantastic servant to the game. And I wanted to ask you, I know it's not over yet in terms of your career. You've still got a few games left, potentially more memories. But what is the biggest memory that you take away from your playing career to date?
Great question.
I've probably got too many, but obviously the league titles, you're always going to remember the guys that you won them with, the teams that you won them with. But they all hit, each title that I've won and league title I've won all hit differently. Like with Manchester, it was a tight-knit team, first one. Do you know what I mean? That you feel part of it. All right, I won the league and things with Coventry, but
Two-way feels a bit different.
Playing. It's a two-way type thing. Like, and then obviously I went full-time, but you don't feel like you contributed as such, but you're there, you point out a roster. Do you know what I mean? So you don't. Manchester was probably the first one, so that was special. Then obviously you've got the ones in Hull. Now, again, Hull sits differently because for me, because personally, outside of hockey, I was having a very, very tough time for certain reasons, and obviously, there was this. I'll be completely open and honest here. I went into training one day, and Huey knew. I said, "Look, I need to share something with the boys." Basically, I was depressed. I was anxious. I was everything. My head had gone, and no one knew. And I thought lads knew about what was happening outside of hockey. And I said, "Look, lads, I feel like some of you already know. This is the deal. This is what's been going on outside of hockey. I'm not right. I'm not well." And I just told them there and then, black and blue, and everyone was like, literally, it was brilliant. And then from then on, we just went on and we won the league, we won the playoff North, and we won the playoffs. But
you boys were wagon, by the way, in that league. Like,
oh yeah, but like
wagon. You, Huey, fucking Lee Bonner. Like, it was a joy.
Barry Davis, Bobby, Sonny Carlson, but the lads after that, obviously, they came, "Look, Archie, we didn't know this was happening in your life, and we really respect you for what you've just come out and said. You're so brave and strong for coming out and saying that." And we used to have some right battles against Sheffield, and it was old school hockey. There was pure hatred between the two teams, and we just used to try and take lumps out of each other. It was literally who could hurt who the most on the ice. It weren't about the goals. It weren't about winning. It was who could hurt who could run someone through the boards. And it were brilliant. And then obviously winning it with Leeds again, obviously it's another special one that feels so good because it's the last league I'll win. And last time I'll have my hands on a league trophy. So, and again, to do it with such a great bunch of lads, because they are a good bunch of boys in that room. They're all right, the young lads, but they're all, again, they're so close-knit. And there's not a bad egg in that room at all. Like, sometimes you might get the odd guy who's, can bring stuff down and be a bit negative, or do you know what I mean? A bit of a tosser. There isn't any of that. There's not one person in that locker room that's not a good guy.
Everyone's putting on the rope.
Yeah, they are just a really good bunch of kids. But put it because they are all young. I mean, I think there's only myself and Matty Haywood above 30. So
doing it for the OGs.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question then. So we sing his fucking praises pretty much every week. Pretty sure I've got carpal tunnel in my good wrist from stroking him off every week. But how good is Kieran, bro? You've played with them all, mate. You've played with them all. How good is he? Yeah,
he is very good. And some of the stuff, I mean, a goal he scored at the weekend, just dangled everyone and slots it home. I mean, the Michigan he pulled off against Swindon, ridiculous. Obviously, I knew about Kieran from playing against him, and he's a good player. but I don't think you realise how good he is until you see him week in, week out, at training, at games. It is a very good talent, and
You try not to get matched up one-on-ones, Arch, on a Thursday night practice. You try to be like, where's he? Where's he fucking like? Skip one back.
One-on-ones don't matter these days to me because I just try and find the slowest guy, but the slowest guy is me, so I'm fucked whatever happens. Yeah,
I love it.
but you don't realize how good of a hockey player he is until you see the stuff he does day in day out. Because he can do it all. He's got vision. He's got grit about him. I mean, I think if he really wanted to and he got angry enough, I bet he could probably dust the mitts off and batter a few people, to be fair.
He's a big old lump. He's a big old kid, isn't he?
Keeps himself in shape.
I remember last year, he absolutely steamrolled over Svek. And Svek's a big old boy.
Mate, he's huge.
Right at the start of the game, he steamrolled him.
It's funny, like I hadn't seen Svek get hit like that before, but I said to Mark the other day, I watched the final. I don't know who it was for MK, but Svek had made like 2 or 3 hits that you would expect Svek to make. Just skating over the top of boys, yeah. Like, but then somebody did it to him. I was like, what the fuck happened there? Who was that?
Yeah,
like run over the top of Svek, like nailed him. By the way, he is way better a hockey player than what I thought. Like, when he was in Swindon, I thought, oh, he's pretty good. And then he was in Hull at the start of the year, and I still thought, like, yeah, he's pretty good. Mate, the guy's so good. So big, so strong. When he shoots the puck, he's just different beast.
I mean, I think if he really wanted to, he could have probably played elsewhere and at a higher level because he's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got a shot. He can skate, he's quick. I think if he really wanted to, he could go further. And I think he's probably still young enough to do so if he really wanted to.
I would love, Mark, we're all about getting guys get their opportunity, right?
Oh, yeah. All day.
Fucking right. Like, I would love the National League to be a stepping stone onto a better league. Okay, here's a bit of a different question. Something myself and Mark have talked about on the podcast over, I don't know, 18 months, fucking 2 years, however long it's been. Mark, we talk about all the time, Brits going to Europe. Arch, what's your opinion on that? Obviously, we see plenty of Europeans come over here, but not many go away. Kirky's now done it. In previous years we've had Dowdy, Pellini, a couple more. Is that an avenue you think young British players should maybe look at taking?
I don't see why not. I think if they're good enough, then why not? I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't try, they're never going to know, are they? But sometimes is it a bit of a comfort blanket being home? Are they making bank at home? Do you know what I mean? So some of the Brits back home could be already on a really good wedge. Yeah. Do they want to go and earn €300 and take a step back when they could be earning 600 quid? They're not going to want to, and that is the bottom line. They don't want to. They're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm earning double here. They're not going to pay me that. But then they've got to have that leap of faith in their own ability and be like, nah, because if I go there and do well, then I'll get that earning. I mean, look at Kirky. I mean, I wouldn't know, but what kind of money do you reckon he's on out there? 40, 50, 60, 70 grand maybe a year?
I genuinely think
he'll be well up there. And
right, Arch, I genuinely want to guess, and I don't know, so I don't. This is not gospel. All of those figures that you just said there, it's none of them. So I think he's more than that. And I think after his playoffs he's having this year, it's going to be fucking more than that again, let me tell you. He's got 8 goals in 7 games. Like, write his own paycheck at the moment.
Well, and that's it. But again, he's took that leap. I mean, he went out to States, but he's a good lad, and obviously knowing his brother and his parents, is a well-grounded lad. I mean, I don't really know Liam that well, I know him from playing against him. I mean, Kirky, his brother, he's another good lad.
Beauty,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
They're
Shout out Mummy
nice-
Kirk by the way on the retweets. Mummy Kirk's been giving it large on the retweets this week because
Oh, yeah.
obviously been pumping Liam's tires. So she's been on the retweets for us, so we do appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that he's took that lead and he's cracking on and doing really well.
Mate, he
And obviously,
genuinely looks good.
Some guys mentioned it other day, like, "Oh, do you think he'll come home?" And I'm like, "He don't want to." I says, "If he's got all about him, which he has."
Yeah, that. Sorry, Mark. That was a fucking perfect reaction for that question. Yeah,
It'd be an absolute travesty if he came home, because I mean, he's doing
Why
so well.
would he come home?
He carries on doing what he's doing. If he came back home to good at Elite League, it's just, yeah.
It kind of feels like a waste of the last 7 years of his life if he he fucking comes home now. By the way, I don't even know what we're talking about because it's not going to happen. That boy is ambitious as a motherfucker. He ain't going anywhere. Like, he's not going anywhere. Like, he wants to play in the NHL. Like, he wants to play in the NHL. Whether he ever gets there, from my conversations with Liam, that is one dialed in individual.
Yeah, and he's got the dedication and desire to do it, and I hope he does go and do it.
I hope he does.
I hope more people look up to him in that respect, because he's the only person I can think of off the top of my head. We've had guys that have gone abroad for a season or two, but Kirky had a horrendous injury. That didn't stop him. Whereas he's played in Sweden, he's played in Finland, and now he's in the Czech Republic. Like,
he's playing the OHL, he's playing the AHL coast. Outside the NHL and the KHL, the kids and the SHL, the kids pretty much fucking he's covered all bases.
Yeah, he's doing it in top European leagues as well. That's the
Arch, when we were kids, Lobby went to Djurgården in Sweden.
Yeah.
And Sheds went to fucking the Bears. Maine. He went to Maine.
Yeah.
Maine, am I right?
San Diego Gulls, weren't it?
And then he went to San Diego Gulls. But outside of that, Joe Watkins went to the coast, maybe. But there's fucking nobody. Nobody was doing it. At least now, like Tetlo's been, Hazeldene's been, Dowdy's been, Farms has been, like Matty Myers is in Morzine. You've got Joey Lewis in Germany. There is guys starting to do it. But if we want to seriously compete with Pool A nations in the years to come, more guys have to go. They have to go younger. So I went to watch a fucking Berlin under-20s game this year, mate. It's a joke. 4 lines. D-men on the 4th line, like fucking hinging D to D, fucking driving lanes, taking blue line to far blue line, button hooking, like 4th line D-men. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Everybody's crisp. So imagine your kids are coming out of that hockey at 19. They're ready. Like, it was like watching little robots, mate. Like, whatever the German coaches said, these kids did. Yeah. And they were playing a team that was nigh on near the bottom of the league. And it was like a 2-1 game. The goalie's phenomenal on the other side. Like, the other team is still good. They're just near the bottom. But, like, the standard of hockey that's getting produced. Mark, myself and Mark, we watched... What was... Bruno Cometa. No, Bruno University or whatever.
Technica Bruno.
Technica Bruno.
Kladno.
I think it was second under 18 second league.
Yes.
Savage. Arch. Fucking savage. Your fucking second line guys coming in and going toe drag spinner armor off the off wing and shit. You're like, this is supposed to be the second league, like savage junior hockey.
The development that they get compared to us Brits, doesn't it? I think
the major difference, Arch, was, don't get me wrong, you had hot dogs like the guy that I said, toe drag to spinner armor off the off wing, savage, that absolute filth. But everybody could step up and play in a game in the national tomorrow because D2D, they're on the wall. If you're a winger, they're on the wall. If they're a centre, they were supporting. Down low, centerman support. Like, everybody was in the right position. And no matter how many fucking Michigans and toe drags and shit you can pull off, if you can't fucking support the guy that's next to you, and by being in a good position, by being underneath the park, by having stick on the ice in good lanes, and by back checking and doing all the, doesn't matter how many Michigans you can pull off because you ain't ever getting on the ice. And this is what I found about like watching that even Bruno second league team, not even their top team, their second team. Every kid was so like dialed in their position. Everybody was where they're supposed to be. Coach had the easiest job in the world. Like everybody's where they're supposed to be. They're doing what they're supposed to be. Mark, how good of a standard was it? That's the second league.
Mate, what's even scarier is I went to the under 15s, I think it was. And the guys on that team, there's one guy called Halash. Unfortunately, he's just broke his ankle, so I wish him all the
Oh shit.
best. This guy already has sponsorship already. He's too young to get a contract. But this guy
So they
that
just sponsor his mum and dad.
I've seen some legit NHL juniors, guys that have gone on to play very good NHL, but no one goes near this kid. But there's 3 guys like this on that team that are all being tapped. There's NHL scouts at like every game. It's ridiculous.
Maybe Europe's the way to go, folks. Maybe Europe is the way to go. Arch, gonna leave you with one last two-part question, mainly because I already know the answer and I just want an excuse to talk about both of them. So, have you ever been involved in a bench clearance? And if so, which ones and where?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been involved in a couple.
Well, let's talk about them.
One was in Romford and the other on the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight was
Right.
the first one I was involved in.
Let's talk about that because it is probably I'd have to ask my boy there, but British Hockey Fights UK might be one of his most watched clips ever because he fucking rolls it out enough. That guy's been rolling that clip out for 15 years straight. Like you boys have the penalty shootout victory. I believe was it a penalty shootout overtime? It was a tight game, right?
It was overtime shootout or something. I can't remember. But all I remember is obviously it ended badly. And obviously
Yeah.
I can't remember if we'd already shook hands and done the line or not. But we had I can't remember whether they were Czech or Slovakia now. We won it too. Stefan Rusnak, his name, right? Anyway, he's going around the ice, giving it the bow to the crowd. Obviously, Jason Coles didn't like that, did he? Full length of the ice, just grabs him, he turtles. That's it. Carnage. Just helmets, gloves, sticks, everywhere. Everyone just fighting. Steve Mayle got absolutely battered by someone. Obviously, he didn't see it
Dan
coming.
Giddon. Giddon it was.
Well, I just remember him trying to cover up because he just caught him like out of the blue. It was just people jumping people. Obviously, it was my first, and I can't remember. I'll have been 16, 17 maybe. And I'm there trying to unbutton my helmet, get Cage off to fight Steve Gossett. I thought this guy, Steve Gossett. Oh God, goalies were going at it. Yeah, Hopkins had grabbed, I think, Julian Smith, maybe.
Yeah,
so there's two big guys.
Big boys there, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, stuff just everywhere. And that's my first experience of a bench clearance. And only stories I remember.
Did anyone say anything to him when you got back in the room, Arch? Like, you can't do that when you're on the Isle of Wight away. Hey,
yeah,
we gotta get the train back down the fucking pier. The locals are gonna bottle us on the train.
Like, what are you doing? Like, why you can't be doing that shit? Like, full stop. Period. Yeah, I think he learned from that you can't do that stuff over here. In fact, I don't even remember if he saw the season out. I don't know if he got fired shortly after that.
Maybe thought it was best. Let's go to the second bench clearance because you're lucky enough to be involved in 2 bench clearances. Not everyone's lucky enough to be involved in 1. Talk us through the second one.
The second one, that was the era of Taras Feremski, Goffer. Albert Peterborough. I think it might be second to last year at Peterborough I had, maybe. And Romford had Chocky, Tyrone Miller. I can't
Sean
remember.
Wallace.
Sean Wallace. Like guys who were tough, very tough. And obviously the night before, Taras did something to Chocky. On home ice, obviously Chocky took exception to it and thought, well, you come into our barn tomorrow, you're in for a night. Told him straight away, I'm coming for you. Anyway, nothing's happened. We come to third period. Obviously, Chocky's like, you're going to get it. Taras decides.
Anxiety levels for Taras must have been.
Decides he's not playing this period, so he sits at the back of the bench because obviously in Romford it's in two. You got your front row, your back row, and then the railings, isn't there? Jodie Marsh has sat to the other side. She knew what was going on. She's got phone out, ready, filming. Chocky's over the far side. Just comes steaming in. I'm like, what's fucking happening here? Chocky's 6'5".
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Fucking literally jumps up, stands on the top of the boards, just launches himself to the back of the bench, who just grabs Taras, just starts feeding him. That's it. Their bench comes over to ours. Everyone's on the ice, like just pure carnage. Yeah, don't really remember too much of him. I remember. In fact, Julian Smith might have fought Wallace then, or the goalie. He might have fought the goalie in Isle of Wight. But I remember he did fight one of the goalies. I can't remember who.
I fought a goalie on the island, actually.
I want to say there were a goalie called Dobson on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, that's who. Do you know when I was talking about the Coventry outside the kebab van and then the goalie fight? That was Dobson as well. that was Dobson. So yeah, it was definitely him.
Julian Smith might have fought him on Isle of Wight. In the first one.
Oh, mate.
And the second one, Sean Wallace grabbed him, and he's got hands like shovels, and he's a big boy.
Big, scary human. Arch, you're not quite done yet. You got the playoff to contend with. Are you boys going to seal the deal and wrap up a double?
Well, I certainly hope so. It'd be a selfish and nice way for myself to completely finish the year.
Oh.
But obviously that is the goal. The goal is the plan now. So
sorry, Arch, just in case my internet just dropped off there. So just if you don't mind taking us through that answer again, just because if it might have caught it on there, it might not, and that would be a shit way to finish the podcast, asking that question and then not actually getting your answer. So obviously, I think we got to, you said it might be a bit selfish for you, but quite rightly, it would be nice to go out on a title win. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, obviously, from a selfish point of view, I'd love it for us to go out. Is it possible? Absolutely. Anything can happen in playoffs. It's anybody's. We have the team to do it. We've got the speed. We've got the skill. We just need to make sure we bring it over the course of the playoffs, and that's what we're building for, this coming weekend. It's for a good playoff run because it's anybody's. Anything can happen. So, yeah, fingers crossed we do it. We've got the team. We've got the skill. We've got the guys who can change a game and do it. So yeah, that is the goal as a team. Is our focus is now the playoffs.
Well, Arch, this has been great fun as expected. Love reminiscing about the EPL days, man. It's a lot of fun to reminisce, and obviously you're still in it right now. So we wish you all the best going forward in the last couple of weeks of your career here, mate. Fucking hell of a career, man. One hell of a battler. I'm going to put this on record right now. I probably said it on the podcast before, but James Archer hit me fucking top 3 hardest I've ever been fucking punched in the face before. Hit me so hard I got fucking deja vu that I was in a fight. It wasn't until he would have won that fight, by the way, if he didn't hit me again. Mate, if he didn't hit me again, I was fucking going down.
Well,
I was still trying to figure out what planet I was on. He hit me
Well,
so flush down the middle in Manchester. Excuse me, folks. He hit me so flush down the middle in Manchester that I didn't even know what fucking planet I was on. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, what a terrible way to begin that
the
story. But
first
yeah,
one was a good. The first one was a good one though in Bracknell.
the first one was a good one in Bracknell, and yeah, and we got it going. We had I remember Bracknell. We were wearing those ugly yellow jerseys. You hit
Yeah,
me a good one in that as well. It wasn't quite
I
as bad,
remember,
but the one in Manchester you hit me with.
I can't remember how the one in Bracknell actually came about, but I just remember we was kind of towards our bench, and we're just like, yeah, we're going. I'm like, all right, we're going. And you took your elbow pads off, and I'm like, why did he took his elbow pads off? And I just remember, I'm like, right, he's got a lot of shit. I can grab here. So I remember just grabbing like both your arms with your shirt and just holding onto that as tight as I could. Just so I got my right hand free.
Mate, yeah, you did really well in that fight. Like I fucking ate about 7 to start that fight. So, so fucking just get fucking speed back. Like, but mate, honestly, the second one, I can't remember. Something happened down in Bracknell game before, and it was like the first shift.
No,
And
you were playing
you were
Sunday.
chasing fucking Pinky and Sesky around,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh fuck, I guess I'm going then. And then like we started going, and I landed one really good one, and you came through the middle, and that was the punch I'm talking about. You hit me fucking so hard, and I hadn't had that since I fought Rob Stewart when I was like 16 in a line brawl in Belfast, and he hit me, and obviously I was 16. He was like fucking 40. He punched me in the face, and I was like, I got deja vu. I never had it until again when you hit me that day. You hit me, and I had deja vu that I was in a fight. And it wasn't until you went whack and you hit me again, I was like, snapped out of it and just started throwing punches. I'm adamant to this day, if you didn't hit me, you'd have won that fight. I would have dropped. I would have dropped.
Yeah, the good old days.
Oh, mate, it was fun. It was fun. Mark, anything else from you, my friend?
Just thanks again for your service to British hockey, and I wish you all the best when you hang your skates up.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, Arch. All the best finishing this season out, mate, and enjoy retirement. It is not as bad as they say.
Cheers, guys.
Your body will be fucking less sore, mate.
Well, you say that, but I've got high rocks to work forward to now.
Oh, okay, maybe it won't be. maybe it won't be.
Yeah, I've got a few competitions booked in for that, so.
Yeah, well, I hope you smash that as well. Ladies and gents, this has been 4,000 and counting. We are ramping it up over the next couple of weeks here, leading up into the Elite League playoff finals weekend, where you will catch us at 11:30 Saturday in Saltbox, 10 a.m. Sunday in Saltbox, and we will also be hosting the third and final podcast of the weekend in the green room inside Motorpoint Arena. Come and check us out. Make sure you subscribe, do all the good stuff, and we will see you then. Check us out another episode this week. Peace.
Peace.